Hey everyone, Tesla Realist here, and I really wanted to take a moment to talk about the results Tesla achieved in Q4 2021 as well as the whole year. Um, because trying to think about the year, I really cannot come to any other conclusion other than the fact that they achieved some really remarkable results this past year. And while they seem remarkable on paper, I wanted to talk about a few of the top reasons I feel are being overlooked that really make this past year absolutely remarkable. So the first is the pandemic, right? So we know that there was downtime at the Fremont factory because of the pandemic, and Tesla's only producing from two factories currently. So having one of your factories down, not being able to produce vehicles and contribute to revenue is like a thorn in your side. So still able to produce over 300,000 vehicles this year with absolutely insane margins, despite downtime at Fremont factory that was unplanned for. That's the first effect the pandemic had. The second was part shortages, of course. So not only was it more difficult to secure parts to deliver vehicles, but it was more costly to secure parts that you did have because of supply and demand. And as Elon Musk has pointed out before, if your car is missing just a single part, they can't deliver it to customers. And there are, over 10,000 parts in a vehicle likely. So having the pandemic cause multiple challenges throughout the supply chain of their product lines, and still being able to achieve such remarkable results is really fascinating. Another effect of the pandemic was increased cost of labor, increased cost of materials. So really they had less ability to produce cars, and the cars they were producing costed more to produce, both from a labor perspective and from a materials perspective. And despite these challenges, they were able to produce more cars than ever by a very wide margin, exceeding both their own guidance and even Wall Street analyst expectations by very large margins. So that's the first reason I really think is being overlooked as why this year was exceptional for Tesla. And that is the effects of the pandemic, that despite them, the various effects, they were able to produce and deliver so many cars with absolutely ridiculous margins. Pandemic, number one. Number two, they are paying for the production of two separate mega factories currently, right now, and they're going all in. So right now they have two factories, Fremont and Shanghai, right? Fremont factory is small. It's not optimized for producing electric vehicles. They bought it in the past. It used to be a Toyota factory, I believe. And now, so they're more than doubling their current factory capacity, we'll say, because Berlin and Austin will have way more capacity to produce cars and batteries, etc., than their two current factories. And they're paying for both factories like upfront right now in full, even though those factories cannot produce any vehicles yet. And they were supposed to produce some vehicles by the end of 2021, but they haven't gotten to produce any just yet. Hopefully it's right around the corner. But obviously that eats into your margins a lot if you're increasing your factory capacity by greater than 100%, and those factories don't contribute a single dime towards revenue. And so when they were building Shanghai, and correct me if I'm wrong, they didn't. So they only bought like some of the supplies needed to purchase vehicles, and then, with the expectation that they would expand over time, etc. They did not do this with Austin and Fremont. I'm sorry, Austin and Berlin. They just bought all the materials at once, and there are some expansions planned, I believe, but from what I remember hearing, and I don't remember where I heard this, these factories should theoretically hit the ground running with more capacity to produce vehicles than Shanghai did, and so they're just using all this cash to buy and build these two mega factories, and despite these factories not contributing a single dime to revenue, they still have absolutely ridiculous margins. I think something like 30%, close to 30% when compared to... That just doesn't happen in the automotive world. And so, just really remarkable. You can imagine how much their margins would have increased if they did not have the expense of those two factories going. And, Tesla will likely build more factories over time. So you could argue that, they'll always have this expense of having to pay for more factories. But they're more than doubling their current factory count, if you count Fremont as kind of like a partial factory, because it's not, like a real big mega factory. So, at what point in the future will they have more factories being built and not producing cars than factories currently running? Probably never again, because once Berlin and Austin get up and running, they'd have to, start building another 4 mega factories at once to double their capacity like that. So they really, really took a major leap into increasing their factory capacity, which really should hurt margins. It's not cheap to build mega factories during a pandemic. And despite that, still achieved absolutely ridiculous results for 2021 as a whole and Q4 2021 specifically. Third overlooked reason for why Tesla's results this past year were absolutely insane. The Model S and Model X, their highest margin, highest revenue vehicles, were down for a significant portion of the year in 2021. So they only had the revenue available from their lower margin, lower revenue models. That is the Model 3 and Model Y. Now, the Model Y has some manufacturing efficiencies that really help the margins, and those are likely to improve as they get the 4680s and the structural battery pack, etc., etc. But the fact of the matter is, the Model S and the Model X, they cost a premium. They're premium vehicles, and their margins are higher than the Model 3 and the Model Y. And they were down for a significant portion of the year. And despite that, they still have insane margins, only counting their 2 lowest margin vehicles. Now, eventually, they'll likely produce even lower margin vehicle, that is the compact, that's coming sometime. I'm not sure, sometime soonish. But which will exert some downward pressure on the margins. But when the Model S and Model X ramp up, that will put some upward pressure on the margins, especially because the Model S and Model X now are, the new models, refreshed models, are selling for much more than the old Model S and Model X. And we know that they cost less to produce. So they got double bang for the buck. They're, the increase in margin on that product is just insane. So those models have insane margin, and they were out for the count for a very significant portion of the year. And despite that, Tesla has these absolutely insane results. So that's number 3. And don't forget, all these reasons I'm mentioning are, were all present during the same time, all contributing to, serve as tailwinds to Tesla's progress throughout the year. They're kind of like cooperating to hold Tesla back. And despite their synergistic effects, Tesla still has just absolutely knockout quarter and year. Reason number 4. So they achieve these ridiculous results, right? But they have massive manufacturing and efficiency improvements coming shortly down the pipeline. So that's reason number 4, that, results in 2021 were absolutely insane. And that doesn't even count the insane improvements we're about to see very shortly. Mainly 4680 batteries, which will increase range, decrease cost, and decrease the amount of battery you have to put in each car, because with the structural battery, you remove some materials, so the car becomes lighter. Thus, you need less battery power or battery capacity to achieve the same range. So they're easier to produce, faster to produce, cheaper to produce, and you need less of them for each model. So that's coming, and that's coming very shortly, and that didn't contribute at all to the results we saw in 2021. That's number 1. Number 2 is now they will have a factory in Europe and a second factory in central United States. So now when we all know that Teslas are some of the best-selling vehicles in the Scandinavian countries, and in order to get there, they have to ship them. I believe from Shanghai is where they ship them from, and you have exports and tariffs and shipping costs and delays because it's got to, by the time it gets to the customer, blah 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 blah. When they have a factory, so they have no factory in all of Europe right now. So getting cars to any customer in Europe comes with a premium, a delay, etc. Now, I'm sure Tesla passes some of that premium on to the customer. But that just means that once they have a factory up and running in Europe, aka the Berlin factory, which is going to be an absolute mega factory, it's going to be a beast, they will likely be able to lower the costs to the consumer, which they may or may not do. They may not do it just because they have so much demand. But they will definitely lower the costs of delivering vehicles to the entirety of Europe. And obviously Europe, very important market for them. And so you have to take the results of 2021 with a grain of salt. No factory in Europe the entire year. And still absolutely insane margins, delivery numbers, etc. So that's number 4, that massive improvements in manufacturing and transportation efficiency are coming shortly down the pipeline. And number 5, the final reason that's most overlooked, in my opinion, about why Tesla results in 2021 were absolutely remarkable when viewed with these caveats, is that we don't know what we don't know, right? So we know what Tesla's planning for the next, 3 to 6 months, etc. That is structural battery pack, 4680s, ramping up Berlin, ramping up Austin, etc. And all of these things, just like I mentioned, are going to make insane improvements to delivery numbers, delivery efficiency, margins, etc., etc. Everything, to the bottom line is going to improve because of these things that we know about in the short term. But what about the medium term, the midterm, the long term? What things is Tesla working on right now? Now they have more revenue to spend on, research, design, engineering, etc., etc. What are they working on right now that's going to hit the pipeline in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? We don't even know yet. So the stuff we do know is absolutely insane. That's going to be, improving all of their results moving forward. I can only imagine what they're working on now with everything they've learned, and now they have more revenue coming in to support, various efforts to improve their results even further. So looking forward to it, definitely. Thank you so much for listening. This has been the Tesla Realist, where I try to take a non-biased look at Tesla and try and predict, where the company's going to move going forward and what that could mean for their revenues, profits, share price, etc. And if you like what you heard, please consider subscribing. Thanks so much.